welcome everybody to this lightning talk. I will give a presentation on designing inclusive delivery channels for crowdsourcing food system information. I will give you a brief intro on the project. I will discuss a use case we have been researching in Guatemala and draw some conclusions. So, background of this project is that we address a problem of missing of a lack of timely information at the right scale about food system dynamics that supports decision-making and early action. So our approach to address the problem was a user-centered design approach of digital tools that crowdsource food system information in high frequency in Rwanda and Guatemala. So we have two use cases. One is in Rwanda, where we developed a data collection tool through USSD. Then we scaled out this tool to Guatemala, but using an approach where we combine WhatsApp and IVR. So we asked ourselves, how can we increase participation in digital crowdsourcing scheme? Especially considering that we wanted to reach or incentivize, so to say, marginalized people, women, maybe low literacy people to submit their information to the crowdsourcing scheme. And our assumption was that IVR would perform better than WhatsApp, considering the literacy level of the people. So we conducted a few moderated and unmoderated usability tests of WhatsApp and IVR to deliver the survey. So the crowdsourcing format delivers a survey to the participant. I should have discussed this earlier. And they are supposed to give information about their data quality. And there are different surveys that we're currently developing, but the test has been around data quality surveys. And we did the piloting and testing together with participants from our partners, World Food Program and Action Against Hunger. And actually the test participants were mostly female, which was not intended in the beginning, but turned out to be those who were able to attend data collection requests during the delivery times that were mainly during the day. So in total, we delivered 178 calls that delivered IVR messages, but we only had 30 responses, so a very low response rate of 3% for the IVR. We delivered over 500 WhatsApp messages. We got a response rate to the WhatsApp messages of 43%. And this was a super surprising results for us because we saw that in our context of this use case, IVR was not performing better than WhatsApp. So what we did that we really went back to the people trying to understand the situation and why people were not responding so well to the IVR calls. So we detected a few reasons, and I think that's a really interesting insight interesting insights we could generate with this experience. So one of the major issues was that there was a very high level of distrust. So Guatemala, as a context, there's a relatively high incidence of violence, of daily crime, but also gang crime, etc. And a significant part is happening over digital channels. So people were really not willing to, people get a call from a number they don't know, they just don't answer the phone. It's particularly true to women because they feel especially vulnerable to these type of situations happening over the phone. We also saw that people are maybe due to this violence issue, but maybe also of other reasons for rotating their phones on a very high frequency. So we couldn't really manage to have a good database for calls. And the bad network quality, that's like typical in rural areas, was also affecting the ability to stay in long calls. So the IVR survey was delivered over 10 to 15 minutes, and in a lot of situations, the calls could not sustain that. Contrary to, for example, WhatsApp, where the messages are delivered when you have network, you answer them and they're kind of delivered back as soon as you have network, and you don't need this long amount of time to answer your survey. And another interesting reason was that we found that people were not able to ask for help during responding the survey. We saw that particularly women were a bit insecure about answering questions. They wanted to be sure, not responding wrong. And especially data quality is something where people also are maybe confronted with a few expectations they want to deliver on. So if the respondents were receiving the survey through WhatsApp, they could ask, let's say, their husband, their brother, their son, clarifying questions before responding. And this was not the case during the IVR calls, which caused a certain level of stress among the participants of the tests. So these are several insights that really changed a bit the course of direction of our work in Guatemala, where we in the beginning thought we would build heavily on IVR. We do not discard it completely, but we started to think a bit more about WhatsApp on the one hand, but also on the other hand, the question is how might we increase the trust of people to participate in this digital crowdsourcing data collection scheme, given these issues that we have found around trust. So we started ideating around information materials or some information campaigns, looking at the possibility to have some clearly identifiable caller ID, maybe combining the two methods, etc. So concluding this, like the insight or the message I want to leave here is that when scaling digital tools, or also these type of digital data collection tools in an inclusive way, the context where you apply or implement the tools are critical, and it's very important to understand in order to incentivize participation in the scheme. And I think trust is often an overlooked issue, but it's also very difficult to address. But it's particularly relevant when we look at high vulnerable groups in these settings, and that's something, for example, when we address women in our work. So yeah, that's my talk. Thank you very much. I'm open for questions, and then hand over to Sarah.
Thank you, Anna. We'll bring Sarah to the stage. We'll do questions at the end.
Awesome. Okay, let me just, I'm just going to share my screen. Awesome. Okay, so hi everyone. Can everyone can see my screen okay? That's the classic question you start all talks with. I'm Sarah Mackay, and I've worked for organisations developing digital solutions for smallholder farmers since about 2012, so quite a while. I currently work for an organisation called Producers Direct, which has been working with smallholders to drive digital innovation since it was founded in about 2009. So in this session, I'd like to talk a little bit about the digital solutions that we have created so far, the lessons we've learned along the way, and the opportunities we see in this space, particularly in light of the rapid movement of AI and other technologies that we're seeing at the moment. Producers Direct, just for a little bit of context, is an NGO working to improve the livelihoods of smallholder farmers, particularly focusing on increasing incomes and increasing resilience to climate change. Where we specialise is in designing services in partnership with smallholder farmers. So that's partnerships which are both digital and in-person services. And since, as I mentioned, since 2009, we've been working with our network of about 1.3 million smallholder farmers to design digital solutions to enable farmers to overcome the many challenges they face. We've learned a lot along the way. One of the big things we learned right from the beginning was that although smallholder farmers may have low digital literacy or low literacy in general, they do have a lot of critical knowledge and expertise, which is very rarely incorporated into, say, a digital advisory service. A lot of the time we still see those services being more top down. And we also, there is a lot of technology out there that could benefit farmers, but it's just still not reaching them on the ground, particularly because most smallholder farmers still have mainly access to a basic phone, so not a smartphone. About 70% of the smallholders in our network still don't have access to a smartphone. And on top of that, many farmers, particularly women and older farmers, they would prefer to access a service in their own language, which is also often much more difficult to do. So in response to this, these kind of multiple different interlinking pain points, in 2010, we designed a digital solution called WeFarm. WeFarm is a peer-to-peer knowledge sharing platform by SMS. We incubated WeFarm as Producers Direct from 2010 to 2015, and then spun it off as an independent social enterprise. More recently, as WeFarm pivoted to a digital solution, we have purchased the WeFarm SMS platform and as well the historic database of farmer-to-farmer questions that has been amassed in the time that it was being used. So we now have an amazing repository of about 25 million farmer-to-farmer questions and answers in 4 different languages, including local languages in Uganda and in Swahili. And it's an amazing repository of insight into, on one side, what farmers want to learn, so the questions they're asking, and on the other side, the knowledge that is held within the farming community. We also possess a considerable amount of machine learning, which is adapted to local languages. So, for example, natural language processing, which recognizes a question and answer in 4 different languages. We have quite an incredible kind of set of tools that we now have at our fingertips to start to build on top of. At its height, WeFarm had about 2.5 million users in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, and was able to answer a farmer's question in about 6 to 7 minutes in their local language. But obviously, along the way, we learned a lot in the development of that digital solution, which is what I wanted to talk a little bit about. Sorry, one second. So first of all, farmers found WeFarm really, really useful. We asked farmers whether or not the information they received was useful information or bad, or not useful information, and about 80% of farmers responded that it was useful, so that we know we were providing useful information. Also, we know that farmers really enjoyed answering questions. Many people asked me, how did you incentivize farmers to answer questions? Did you pay them? Were there any rewards? And the answer is no. The answer is many farmers told us that they'd rarely been asked to share their knowledge before being a part of WeFarm, and it was something that they really valued. We also learned that even basic machine learning can make a really big difference to a digital platform. So you don't need the kind of like the latest LLMs to really move the needle on the service you're delivering. For example, we had an algorithm which we introduced, which was called Chicken Rank, which more intelligently routed the questions to a farmer that we knew had prior knowledge in an area. And we were able to make it possible for a question to be answered in 1 hour as opposed to 24 by introducing that algorithm. Finally, the couple of other things, it's really hard to design a user experience for a basic phone for SMS. You lose a lot of the features that you have, obviously, with a smartphone. You don't have your camera. You don't even have an easy way of getting the GPS location of that farmer. And the final thing is that in its current state, WeFarm is very costly. To answer one question, it took about 25 SMSs being sent between different people. So although it was very effective, it was very costly. So we've also been working on another digital tool recently, which with the idea of responding to the challenge that many farmers still aren't benefiting from the power of big data and AI. This digital tool is called Croppy. One of the biggest barriers preventing smallholder farmers from benefiting from AI is lack of smallholder data. So particularly lack of data from smallholders who do not have smartphones, and particularly data in local languages, which is of course what we do have access to now with WeFarm. So the idea behind Croppy is to design a digital solution which enables farmers to share their on-farm data and access something useful in return. So instead of the data, as it tends to do, going up the value chain and not being useful to farmers, find ways to enable farmers to benefit from the data they're sharing. So at the same, on one hand, you're providing a digital solution which is valuable to smallholders, and on the other side, you're building this huge ground truth data set, which can be used to further train AI in the future. So far, we started with a simple use case, which was enabling a farmer to take a photo of their coffee cherries in order to get an AI-driven yield prediction back to their phone, and then be able to access kind of personalized tips and advice along the way. And we have collected already in just 2 or 3 years about 2 million data points. We've worked with about 3,000 farmers to design the digital solution. And what I would say is where we are now is that we have a really clear idea of what the pain points are for smallholder farmers, and that's what we want to focus on now as we develop the next stage of Croppy. So as I mentioned already, one of the biggest pain points for smallholder farmers is technology access. You need to be able to design a tool which is accessible, as Anna was testing in her project, accessible by all of the different communication channels. So that a farmer can use it in the way that they find the most comfortable. Obviously, we want to try and overturn the sort of top-down advice and information, and bring farmer knowledge and expertise into the fold as we're developing advice for smallholder farmers. Although Croppy is relatively personalized in terms of the advice it's able to give, it's based on your yield prediction of your coffee farm. There's so much more that could be done in relation to the personalization of the information that you're giving to farmers. Like that data exists. Like you can have an Earth observed soil data if you have the GPS location of a farm, for example. But it's just a case of connecting those dots. And finally, one of the most important things is you really have to connect farmers not just with information via a digital solution, but with finance, with markets, and because without that full holistic set of services, it's very difficult for a farmer to adopt the advice that you're giving. So our vision for Croppy as we move forward is to build this kind of platform which is designed by farmers, trained with farmer-led data, building this massive data set of smallholder data which can be used to develop AI in the future. It connects farmers to each other, to other stakeholders in the value chain, and is accessible through multiple different communication channels. So a farmer can ask a question about an urgent problem, they can receive bespoke data-driven advice, their data itself unlocks access to other services, and also enables them to connect with other key people within the value chain. So just to finally to sum her up, we really see obviously a lot of potential in digital innovation in terms of improving farmer incomes. I think what we really need to do is really leverage the amazing technology that exists at the moment. You can have a weather prediction down to 4 kilometers. You can tell a farmer what their soil looks like. All sorts of amazing technology, but that needs to be accessible with the technology a farmer has in their hands right now. So, and in doing so, it is possible to provide precision agriculture for smallholder farmers. It requires a lot of thought and a lot of careful kind of planning of the user experience. And finally, one of the reasons I wanted to be here today, one of the most important things I believe is that we shouldn't be developing any of this technology in silo. Like one of the amazing things of the ICT for Ag conferences, that we're all sharing our learnings, all sharing what's working, not working. So we need to not operate in a silo. And if something's working in one place, if a piece of technology is effective, let's make it possible for other people to use that and test it and scale it. So that's my final my final call. If anybody has technology or learnings they think could help us and vice versa, please do get in touch. I'll put my contact details at the end of the talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Anna. That was very enjoyable to listen to both of your presentations. We do have a couple questions, actually one for each of you. So why don't we start with Sarah, since you were just direct on your topic here, and then I'll go to the question for you, Anna. A question from the audience is, I would love to learn more about Producer Direct's views on WeFarm's rise and fall as a company. What can be learned from that experience, especially now that WeFarm has been acquired back by Producers Direct?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, I mean, I think WeFarm, the reason WeFarm was made an independent social enterprise, having been incubated by Producers Direct, was to give it a chance to develop a sustainable business model, right? So that it's expensive to deliver this service to farmers. So it was very, very important to be able to find ways to generate revenue. And a bit of a barrier to that and to getting investment to develop that business model was WeFarm being part of an NGO. So we set WeFarm up as a social enterprise so it could have impact investment, VC investment, that would capitalize its development, enable us to invest in the technology and the business models. I would say in hindsight, what ended up happening is that it was very, very difficult to provide the level of revenue that was expected from the investors that had invested in WeFarm. And as a result of the investors that we had, the platform moved away from SMS and moved towards digital, to kind of serve the kind of interests of those investors. And I would say that and it's an amazing outcome as a result of that we now have the platform as Producers Direct, so we can continue to kind of work out how we can build and scale that. But yeah, I would say that the key learnings are that it's very important. It's important to develop a sustainable business model, but it also you can't do that in kind of isolation of the impact that you're trying to deliver. So yeah, very key learning, and a lot of success, but then obviously a lot of things that we can now work on to improve as we move forward.
Thank you for that, Sarah. I appreciate it. Next question, we'll move to Anna, and it comes from the audience as well. And there were some people in the audience that were surprised to see that IVR was not very effective in the study that you shared. There was a couple sessions yesterday, I believe, in fact, that had mentioned that they did view IVR as an effective channel. And people, can you tell us maybe a little bit more why this finding was different, or what maybe led to that?
Yeah, I think the message I wanted to leave with this insight is also that it's very context dependent. And I mean, maybe Guatemala is a very different setting. And so in the beginning, I said, the tool we developed started in Rwanda, and it was delivered through USSD. And maybe also interesting insight for you, Sarah. I really share this learning with you that it's so difficult to design for these basic phones, right? I mean, we take it probably a bit for, okay, it's IVR, it's SMS, USSD. We did some usability testing also with USSD in Rwanda with interesting results. So Guatemala as a digital ecosystem, I think, is in general a bit different than we know of African countries. And then we have to see this particular topic of trust. So the reports, when you look at digital ecosystem and also digital inclusion in Guatemala, there pops out a lot this problem of, so it's a very violent, like the criminal rate in the society is very high. And there's a lot of crimes happening over the phone. So this issue of trust is very strong. people don't trust any number that they are receiving a call from. In fact, I mean, I've lived quite some time in Guatemala, and the first lesson you learn is like, if you don't know the number, just don't answer. And I mean, that's influencing a lot when you deliver messages over IVR, and especially in this system we were working on, where you ideally in each data collection moment you have a different sample of people. But it also affected, I think it also affected a bit the WhatsApp delivery in a sense, but so the main point I think I'm making is not IVR is not effective in general, but it really depends on the context where you want to deliver or where you want to use the tool. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Anna. And I have one more question here, and it actually goes back to IVR as well. And does the wheat farm have provision for IVR? Can farmers have access to climate advisory through wheat farm, like when to plant, when to apply fertilizer?
So not at the moment. WeFarm was purely SMS, and it pivoted to a digital, like a smartphone app. But that is definitely the plan, to make it multi-channel. I think that's really, really important. And yeah, the idea of being able to have precision agricultural advice based on data from your farm, definitely the plan. Particularly looking at how you can leverage members of your community with smartphones and without smartphones to collect data, so you can provide that kind of like really precision agricultural information, and using things like earth observation based soil data on top of that, basically. So that is the plan, but it's not quite in practice yet.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We're going to wrap up this session now because we're just a couple minutes from our next keynote. Are there any final words, Anna and Sarah, that you would like to share with the audience, or those that are maybe watching this later as they come back to ICT for Ag content as well?
No, I shared my contact details in the chat if anyone would like to discuss anything further. Thank you very much for having us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, also thank you from my side, and thank you, Sarah, for sharing this interesting experience that you're having. I'm also sharing my email in case anybody wants to follow up, because we're having also really these interesting details from Rwanda. We're working on a publication. I hope I can share something more compact soon.